What's going on, great people? Brooke and Terrell Harris here. Oh man, we're at home today. It actually feels pretty good to be at home.
Especially for me as the homemaker.
I can reach behind. I thought I could reach behind the couch to get water. But I can get water from the side. It's not noisy. There's no kids. The only thing we got here is the dog, Kobe, and she's good in the side. So again, I'm Terrell Harris. For those who don't know us, this is my wife, Brooke Harris, and we are pastors of the upcoming church plant, the Open Box. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Do you have anything else to say?
Let's jump right in.
All right. Yeah, okay, I guess so. So, all right. So today's topic is dealing with change. So Brooke came up with this topic, and I thought it was a pretty good concept because both of us actually go through change, or we've been going through changes as it relates to careers, as it relates to ministry. And even for me, as I think about, being in IT for roughly 15 years and then trying to make the change or making a change to ministry and it's a full-time entrepreneurship, it was pretty risky, especially considering that I will no longer be doing Department of Defense contracting because my clearance is in some weird gray area. So it's almost as if I was kind of pushed into change and not necessarily ready for it, but it's happening. So let's chat before we actually get into the questions and the discussion questions. Let me ask you, as it relates to change for you, what's been a major change in your life that you had to kind of wrestle through or go through?
The one that just came to mind is learning more about me.
Mm-hmm.
That has been the biggest change because I spent so much of my life being very withdrawn, even though I don't think I always appeared that way. And sometimes I did, maybe. But, the internal things that go on and what you see can be very different. And I've been on my journey of exploring that, working through that, and just really learning about me and really being me and all that God has created me to be.
Yeah.
And that has been,
yeah,
it's a good topic of change, to talk about change, because can I just jump into it?
Yeah.
For me, it was really hard. Like over the years, it has been really hard understanding and dealing with that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I've finally gotten to a place where I'm really learning to appreciate and accept it.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get here because I really was just like, oh my gosh, I gotta work on this, I gotta work on that. This is a drag. Like I'm tired of always working on something. But in that working on something, I've had to change. I've had to change how I viewed things out there and how I viewed all that in here.
Yeah. Let me talk about change, not necessarily from like that personal, but I was actually thinking about this as it relates. What can I talk about? So for a lot of my career in technology, I was actually involved in process improvement, what they call configuration and change management. And usually I was always in the place to do quality assurance checks like that and push these organizations to improve their process by coming up with, strategies to streamline things. And organizations do not like it. They want it, and I got paid to do that. But man, like I was in the middle of, the project managers wanting to push out these tech projects very fast because the government was pushing them. But then also the government didn't want these projects to get out with any defects. So they're like, I was responsible. I was like the last checkpoint before some of the things would go live on the network. And like change management and managing change within the context of a business, it gets pretty insane because so many people get used to the norm, or so many people are used to the way things are run. So as soon as you say, this individual's here to kind of help with change, I got so many. I actually got horror stories. Like, I remember, one guy coming up to me and I was like, hey, I'm Terrell, I'm gonna be doing release management, managing some of the changes to the network. It's like, who are you? And then he got real attitude-ish with me. He's like, well, I'm not doing anything you say until you have valid documentation and it's approved by the government. Now, mind you, we were both contractors on the same contract. So like, thinking like, well, you need to talk to the government because they're the ones telling me to do this. So, it in organizations and in our personal life and relationships, change is often something that's kind of hard to manage. All right, so let's dig into
inevitable.
Yeah, so let's dig into some of the discussion questions as we were going. So the first question that I think we were leading up to this is, why is it so hard to deal or adapt to change?
Well, I think it's challenging adapting to change because we're used to things being a certain way.
Yeah.
Or we get very comfortable where we are, even if where we are is not where we want to be. I think also there's an unknown factor about change at times. Like sometimes you could say, oh, let's change to this because this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But you don't know that 100%. So the unknown can be challenging for people, fearful, the fact that it can require more. Sometimes it requires less, but you don't know that. So a lot of times I think we're in our head about that change, and just the fact that it in many ways can require us to just be or do something different. And it's not always easy, or we think it's not always easy.
Yeah. Some of the things I came up with, as I was doing research into the topic and just kind of trying to really dig deep to figure out why people and organizations and society doesn't necessarily like change, is here's a list of things. We're full of emotion and fear as it relates to change. So basically what that point is saying is that because change is different and, you can't necessarily conceptualize the future or envision the future, you remain fearful and resistant to what's new. We're scared to take that journey. So even though something may be mapped out because it's different, we may still not actually, be fully invested because we just don't actually know if that process is going to work out or not. Again, like I said, we can't visualize the future. We don't actually trust the process. So like what's happening in this point is the norm is already set as structure. You're used to it. It doesn't matter if it's dysfunctional. It's just something that's there. So when somebody is in a relationship, or if somebody's in an organization and they try to adjust or fix this dysfunction, because you're used to that, regardless of if it's stressful or anything like that, you're still going to remain more likely to stay in that situation because you don't want anything different.
And because you can control it.
That's actually a good point. What else? The status quo is already proven. So, unless somebody, what I'm realizing too in business and, in relationships and also in dealing with, in things that are internal, is when you have a status quo and, you're used to operating in that realm, and then somebody says, hey, you could do things a different way. It may be proven outside of the organization. It may be proven outside of me. It may be proven outside of the context of the relationship. But if I can't latch onto that, or if I've never experienced anything different, I'll never really think outside of the status quo. And I think of, individuals who maybe get stuck in certain situations in terms of their neighborhoods, or in terms of maybe impoverished situations. What happens is you have so much as it relates to, how do I want to say it? So you have so much going on. So like if we take the situation in Flint, right? So not only are they impoverished, they, now their water system is jacked up. So if I was to try to come in there and be a change agent and, give them inspiration, their norm says no. Their norm says no. I'm not going to be able to make money. Their norm says I may not be able to get out of this situation. And their norm says the world and the government doesn't care for us because look what they do to the water system. So that status quo is already proven. Although, I may operate outside of the status quo and say, no, you could get out of there. There's ways out. If you do X, Y, and Z, it's not proven to them because nobody in their realm may have even made it out of, their particular neighborhood or their context. And this last point is a person or group of people or the organization has failed at change in the past. So you've seen change implemented, and then you don't want to take a risk on it because you've gone down this path. Say, oh, I've tried, I've had a relationship, so I'm never going to be in a relationship anymore because it didn't work.
Right.
Or, I've worked at this place for a period of time and they don't treat their employees again, so I'll never work at a place like this type of place, like a type of business like that again.
Right. Yeah.
You want to add anything else?
No.
Okay. Another key point that came up in thinking about this is there's a false perception that people don't like change, although change is always around us, right? So and watching these YouTube videos about change and how we interact with change, it was real interesting. If you really think about it, change is all around us. So you think about technology, for instance, right? So the fact that I'm able to wear a fashionable watch that also tracks my steps. I actually can see my text messages on here from my phone. I could track my running. I could track my sleep. I could time my meditation. The idea that actually exists, and we're excited to get technology and stuff like that. So when it comes to modern advances in technology, change is okay.
I don't know if that's always true. Because I know that when I'm on Facebook and they keep making changes, that pisses me off, okay? Okay? And they make it incrementally because they know that if they took it from what it was in 2006 to what it is in 2016 like that, if they would have done it that quick, we would have just been all mad.
So you'd rather go back to 2006 Facebook?
I don't even remember what it looked
like.
Exactly. But I'm saying that if you recall, like anytime we saw a change or how like, oh, it went kind of gray or oh, it did this or oh, it did that, each time people were like, Facebook, you see that change and stuff? Like, oh, I don't like that. But if they would have done it all at once, what they did over a 10-year period, we would have just had our panties in a bunch.
But that makes a good point because you raised the point of incremental changes being good or more easy to adapt to than just, a total, 180.
Absolutely.
Which is a good point.
Absolutely. But I also feel like, I don't know if there's a false perception that people don't like change, though.
Okay.
I like change.
You just said how all the change was rough, though.
And I don't like change. And you know what? Because I realize at times, I like change because I want this to happen or this should happen, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. But when you're actually experiencing it, it doesn't always feel that great. It doesn't always feel that great. And so even I'm very hesitant about things. Like at my job, they did what Facebook didn't do. There's a system that we have, and it looked white, and it was all this, and I knew how to work it. They just changed it. It's blue. Stuff is over on the left. I mean, the whole thing looks different. And I'm looking around like, what? Why did they do this? Like, why did you do this like that so quickly? Like, why didn't you have a change 1.0 and then a change 2.0? Have me to adjust to this. But they just smacked me in the face. And I'm like, now I got to do all this and I have to figure this out. And I'm like, this is going to take a while. So I like change and then I don't like change, but I have to be real about that because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I like change because change is good and we evolve and yada yada yada. But the fact of the matter is, it's not always that easy. Yeah, and
sometimes we like change that we can control, and that doesn't impact us in a major way.
Absolutely.
So for sure, oh man, they made a update to my Android system. I hate it, but it's a little bit different than saying, well, our neighborhood is going to completely change and they're going to, redo the way they do condo fees and stuff like that. Even thinking about it, when we talk about the budget as it relates to our condo association, when we try to address issues of change as it relates to budgeting and the potential to just raise the fees a couple of dollars, it gets insane.
Yep.
But I use that as an example to say sometimes there's an unwillingness to change, although change is inevitable, because ultimately for us to keep up with expenses and keep up with the increase in expenses, just that's surrounding us as it relates to grass maintenance and stuff like that, ultimately we're going to eventually have to adjust that. But we don't like that type of change because it's a deep impact on us. It impacts our our pocketbooks. It impacts our budgets.
Right.
But we risk it having a deeper impact on our community because it'll impact maintenance. So like roofs, gutters, windows, siding. So
no, it's true. It's true. Like we don't always think about the longer term outcome of the change that happens today.
Yeah. So another example of people that people liking change, or there's the perception that people don't like change, is advances in medical science. So you think about, if there weren't advances in some of these medical sciences, we wouldn't have cures for certain diseases. We wouldn't have medication. So people tend to like that stuff, and we never necessarily think about that. So that changes all the time. And when we get cures for diseases, it's great. So that's an example of change that we're all for. We don't necessarily fight against.
Right. And even actually, you're right. It happens all over the place, because I'm thinking about like where we live, and not like here, but just like in the state where we live, like 10, 15 years ago, there's that one street that was like 2 lanes, like 1 lane going each way, and now it's like 4 or 5 lanes, stores, and all this stuff that wasn't there, because before it was just the lane going each way and trees. Yeah,
it was just forest.
Right, now it's homes. It's homes, it's restaurants, and that restaurant's always packed. Yeah. So there is change all around.
Yeah. We just have to welcome it and understand that, certain situations, it's not going to hurt us. It may be painful a little bit, but it won't hurt us.
Yeah.
So the last question, and, we'll wrap it up here, is what is the key to adapting to change? So that, we talked about change being so tough. We talked about it being challenging. We talked about it being, a little scary. So how exactly are we supposed to adapt to change? What are some keys?
The thing that comes to mind for me is understanding that, and it's really sinking in for me lately, that everything that happens is for your good.
Yeah.
And I know like they say that all the time, like in church and everything, and it doesn't always seem like that, especially when you've been through some really traumatic or chaotic or crazy stuff.
That's tough theologically, man. We might have to unwrap that.
No, it is tough. And it's funny because I was watching this video with this life coach, Rhonda Britton. She was getting interviewed by this guy, Jonathan Fields. So I was watching it, I think yesterday, and she was saying that when she was 14, she witnessed her father shoot her mother, point the gun at her at 14 years old. The mother said no. He then turned the gun back to the mother, shot her again, which killed her, and then he killed himself. And this was all in front of her. And so now at the age that she is, she's saying that everything worked for my good. That no, that was not something that was good, but it worked for my good, my ultimate good. And I'm starting to understand that for myself, that so many of the different things that I've experienced, that I've been through, some of them happened to me, other things I chose, that no matter what, that it's brought me to this point, and everything that I experienced from this point on is going to bring me to the next point, and so on and so on. But it's for, it's for and can be used for the benefit of my own soul's growth and what I am to bring forward in this life.
Yep.
Well, not saying that there are other lives. I don't really know, but because I emphasize in this life, like in this life, and in the next one, I don't know. But yeah, and so just really understanding that, and also willing to be open and willing to really learn to be aware, like self-aware, and to reflect, and to really look at. This is a big one I'm learning too. Really looking at the reality of what is.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning, in so many things that we experience, when we think about them, when we experience them, we're not always thinking about it as it is. We're thinking about it as we feel it is. We're thinking about it as we think it is, but not really looking at what it is.
So that's a pretty deep concept.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's simple, but it's very challenging because we don't do that. Like, we're in our head, we have on these glasses to where we're seeing things, right? Our ego, like all these things, and looking at what it is. And I've had to do that, like in relationships and friendships and in all sorts of situations, looking at like, okay, I'm thinking it's like this, or I want it to be like this, but what is it really? Like, strip all that stuff away. What is it really? And when we can do those things, that can help us to get into that mode of adapting better to change, from my perspective.
Yeah.
You can go on Agile if you want. We're done now.
All right, well, for those who've been watching, I like lists, so here's my bullet point list. Number one, understand common wisdom is not the only wisdom. So basically, what you have now, what you know now, although it may be common, that doesn't mean it is a finite point, that there could be some additional wisdom or skill set or knowledge you could pick up. So remain open to that, and that'll help you adapt to change. Know that you're not perfect, your situation is not perfect, your work environment is not perfect, and understand that at any point in time there could be room for improvement in any arena, whether it's personal development, whether it's development of relationships, or whether it's business development. Norms, although common, are not the end-all be-all to any situation. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Take on an evolution mindset. So basically, when we speak about evolution, you get into the science behind evolution. The idea is that when you evolve, things become better. So when you take on a mindset of evolution, you're always in a constant state of knowing or seeking improvement and, a better situation, better relationship, better, let's just say better connection to God, better business habits, better practices. So you're just continuing to evolve and, have a evolution mindset. And the final thing is never imprison yourself to the norm. So no matter what you're going through, no matter how rough your situation is, no matter how used you are to your situation, or no matter how comfortable you are, basically don't be comfortable. Never get comfortable to the norm, because when you get comfortable to the norm or the normal situation, you create a box, put yourself in the box, and since we're the open box, we're telling you not to do that. Step outside the box.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. That comfort, like, and you see it all the time, because especially when we talk about comfort, it sounds like, comforter. It's warm and cozy. And it's not. Like, sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's craziness. Like, sometimes it's chaos. Like, that can be your comfort zone, because it's what you know, because it's what you're used to. And so we can do those things in, like, staying in a job where it's just, lacking integrity. They're doing all sorts of craziness, where we're staying in relationships that are not serving us, and not the whole give and take, but just, for our good. And that can be friendships too, like staying in these relationships that just aren't healthy.
Scared to take the risk,
right, because we're so used to it, and sometimes that chaos, that craziness, that becomes the norm, because you're so used to it. You expect this in each relationship, in each job, that's the norm. But don't get comfortable with that, because change is, we all, I believe, are destined for more than that.
Yes.
And we got to learn that and know that.
And that is the period on Theology Thursday. I think that was a good ending. Good ending. So
we're still taping.
I know.
Okay.
Clap it up. Slow clap. Let's start a slow clap. No. All right. But that's good. I think we're in a good place as it relates to what we're going to be doing. So upcoming weekend we have team meetings. So be on the lookout. For those of us who don't know, you can go to openbox.com, and we'll be placing a lot of our events and activities on the calendar. Hopefully, I got it working last night. I stayed up late to try to get it to work, but I think it's working. So we're in the process of growing our team. We need. I'm gonna put a number out there. We need 35 additional people by let's just say June, because we want to kick off some test services to see where we're at. We're going to be, launching in the Hyattsville area, which is where we live at, and we want you to become involved. So just come out, learn. Actually, you can email us at info@theopenbox.com if you want to learn more. Even if you're not local, connect to us. We still can do some fabulous things online, and that is it. I am at Mr. Terrell Harris on every social media platform. She is at Land of Brooke.
Yep. Except on Snapchat, the Land of Brooke.
Oh, yeah.
In case you're on Snapchat.
And that is all. Peace and blessings. You guys have a good one. Yeah.
Still broadcasting.